Bassheads, it's the OG, Soda Pop Kid, coming to you direct down in my storage unit. And I have a story for y'all. This should be a slight, brief story. It shouldn't be no 30 minutes. But I'm going to tell you a story about when I met Alma Gates and talked directly to Alma Gates back in 2003 in Newcastle at a car audio competition that went on for a whole weekend. All right, and I know that DB Drag was there and USAC, and that was the first time I've ever won a trophy when I was running 810s, Lanzar 10s, and two Lanzar 1200D monoblock amplifiers, the first monoblock amplifiers I ever ran. Now, I don't know if they were the first ones that came out. I heard Rockford had them, because before then they had a 2-channel and 4-channel AB class amplifiers. Okay. My car was freshly painted yellow then, and I had the 3-star chrome rims on it. And I heard about that competition, and I, at one point, would only go to local shows, and there might only be 2 a year. Newcastle was one of them, right before I started going out to Carlisle, to the tuner show and then the truck show. The tuner show was in June, and the truck show was in August, and I would go out there and enter the slap competitions. Y'all never heard of slap? Before I even knew what DB Drag was, I was hearing about this contest called Slap. Well, anyway, I went to Newcastle, and Alma Gates was a special guest there. And she had her truck. When her truck went from... Now, the first time I heard about her was in 1996 when I seen her in a car audio magazine. I used to collect those. As a matter of fact, I got quite a few of them. They ain't out no more. They need to come back out. But anyway, I saw, as a matter of fact, I got that whole article laminated and on my barbershop wall of her Blazer. Okay, when it was silver, it was like silver, and it had the 46 precision power 10s in it. Okay, with 46 precision power amplifiers when that company built, and she had that. She had the world record numbers out back then. I think a 164, possibly 168. Okay. And they built that for her. Well, I met her in Newcastle at a show. Now, the whole weekend, she was famous. Now, if anybody was famous in car audio, it was her. Okay? Like, none of us technically are famous. Yeah, you got the loudest guy in the world and stuff like that, and everybody knows that. You know what I mean? Yada, yada, yada. Maybe they are somewhat famous. But none of us is getting rich from car audio except for the guys that own companies that are selling amps and subs. And you know, and radios and line drivers and yada, yada. Okay, they're getting paid. But we're not getting paid to do this. We're spending our money. That's what we're doing. We're spending our hard-earned money. But anyway... She, I could say, was famous. And then, you know, there was a lot of news reporters down there and all that with mics in her face all weekend. And I wanted to get to her and talk to her. You know what I mean? So finally, Sunday comes. By this time, her truck was rebuilt by Kicker. She had 48 Kicker 12s in there, the square ones, and 48 amplifiers, and it was painted red. So she had left PPI. And went with Kicker, and she was the first one I ever saw float towels and do hair tricks. She was the first one I ever saw do that with that truck, because she was doing it down there. You know what I mean? And finally, I went up to 2 of the guys from Kicker, and I guess they were 2 of the guys that had built that truck. I'm going to assume that. And I said to them, I was like, hey, I've been trying to talk to her all weekend, man. I mean, I got pictures of her old build, of her old build on my wall and everything. You know what I mean? You know them guys there, they walked over to her and they was like, you know, they was talking to her and she looked over at me. She walked away from that crowd and walked over to me and reached out her hand and said, hi, my name's Alma. Who are you? And I told her who I was, and I started talking with her, and she sat there and talked to me. She told me how she got into car audio. Well, her son was doing it first. Her son was into it. She said my son had a loud stereo system, you know, and he was competing. And she was like, I thought it was cool. She's like, so I decided I wanted to do it. So She was like, there was a guy around that time that had a Rockford build that was like the loudest dude in the world, whoever he was. She's like, he had the loudest numbers in the world at the time. And she got a hold of him and asked him to build her a build. And he said to her, I'll build you a build, but I'm not going to make it as loud as mine. And she wanted it that loud. And she was like, what difference does it make if I'm paying you? And she said he was ignorant. Like, I'm not making it as loud as mine. And so she just said, well, okay, then forget it. She said she got in touch with PPI, however she did. And she said when she went to PPI, she's like, she mentioned him. And she's like, I want mine to be louder than that asshole's. She's like, whatever you do, I want to be louder than him. I want to beat him in the lanes in front of him. And so they built her that truck. And she's like, and then I did compete against him, then I did beat him. And she was like, that's what you get for being ignorant. When I asked you to do this build, you didn't want to do it. She told me that story. And how her son had gave it up, but she kept on doing it because she started really like doing car audio. So she kept it up. She kept doing it. And I remember when she had those numbers that she had hit. I remember back in Pittsburgh, Yaka Brothers was trying to, a dude named Jimmy that worked at the Yaka Brothers was trying to get her. Brian Ramsey was trying to get her. And a whole lot of guys was trying to beat her at that time. And I remember hearing Jimmy's truck, he had 818s in his truck, but he only can get to 150-somethings, I remember at that time, because the meters and stuff was different. And Brian Ramsey, I never knew what he was metering, but I remember sitting in his truck and he had 8 Rockford Fosgate 18s with an amp. Oh my God. And it was sealed. And he had it in a wall. It was like Pac-Man, a Pac-Man wall. Oh my God. It was loud, but nobody can get her. Cats were going at her at that time, and nobody could get her at that time. I remember that. And I'm talking about like 90, 98, 97, 98, 1996, 97, 98. They were trying to get Alma Gates, man. They were trying to get her. I couldn't get her, bro. But I'm just letting y'all know, I talked directly to the woman. You know what I mean? And yeah, some of y'all don't know of her. You new jacks don't know of Alma Gates, bro. Y'all don't know that she was an older woman. She was in her 60s, somewhere in her 60s, when she first broke the world sound pressure record. And I also remember some other guys. I remember when I was running Pyramid 12s and I went out to a contest in Washington, PA, I remember. You know, that was in 96. I really wasn't no competitor, but that was kind of close. So I went out there and I only did a 135. But I remember some guys from Ohio was out there with 818s that did like a 158. And they was excited. They was tripping over that score. I don't know what kind of record they had broke that day. It was I remember it was a white SUV. You know what I mean? And I was like, wow. And I think they were trying to go after her as well. I can think that. They may not have been in her class, I don't know. But like I said, I met the woman. Talked with her. She was a real nice lady. I remember her having on the bottom of her windshield. I was trying to explain to her that back here, these people didn't understand loud systems and why we ran them, especially back then. And she was like, she pointed at her window. She's like, why don't you go out there and tell them this the next time? And it said on the bottom of it, if it's too loud, you're too old. She's the first one I seen with that on her window. And that was that. You know what I mean? And we shook hands again and I walked away from her and I was like, nice meeting you. At least I got to talk to her. And that was good enough. You know what I mean? So you guys that never heard of who's that, then go look her up on Google, Alma Gates. Her name was spelled A-L-M-A, Gates. And she passed away, in 2013 at 89 years old, 83 or something like that. That truck still exists. I think her son or them got a hold of it. That truck still exists to this day. It got new equipment in it, but it got a whole fleet of alternators going around it. That engine. You know what I mean? So, yeah. She was a famous, all right. You know, traveling. There came a time when somebody did beat her, and then she came back and beat them, and then retired, and then she just would travel around with the truck. So just Google her and look her up. All right, that's some more history for y'all. OG, Soda Pop Kid. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Peace, y'all. I'm out.